So
I don't know if they're necessarily settling for them, because at the end of the day, like a man who
no, they're settling. The majority of women who get married, they marry their second or third choice.
Damn, that is wild. You're telling me, hold on. So what gives you the impression that like a woman is often marrying like someone that wasn't their first choice?
All right, check it out.
That's a crazy concept to think of, because now I'm like looking at all marriages like, you might not have been the one, sir.
Right. No, I'm serious. Like, check it out. You say like you got like a group of 100 people.
Okay.
And
ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jeff Damisse, and you are in the Introspect Club, a club where you can learn a lot about yourself through conversations with other people. Today's topic is something that is very dear to me for obvious reasons. We are going to be discussing the male psyche, the things that men go through, the things that are important to men, but also are important for women to kind of also understand, because women are often impacted by how we move in this society, and the value that we bring to each other is a very important topic that I think is often misguided. And I brought somebody who is a very professional individual in the space of understanding men as well as coaching them. So without further ado, let's bring up professional dating coach for men, Justin Adams. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the Introspect Club. I got to give you a badge for the Introspect Club at the end of this, because everybody's got to get a badge for being in the club. How you doing?
Definitely. Yeah, doing well. It's a fantastic day in New York, so I'm looking forward to getting out later on, hit the highways a little bit.
And what he means by hitting the highway, so I had Justin come here. He pulls up on a bike looking like Top Gun over here. I was like, this guy's a super soldier over here. I'm not going to lie. I used to have motorcycles, right? I used to be into motorcycles, and I mentioned that to you before. Mm-hmm. And I did something really dumb, which I was about to crash my bike. I was in the middle of riding, and I used my leg to save the bike, and I trashed my leg. That's how important the bike was to me. I saved the bike and messed up my leg, but I'm good now. I got stuff going through it. I'm kind of bionic.
Okay.
We're not going to talk
titanium.
about it. Yeah.
Okay.
So give everybody a quick introduction of yourself and what it is that you do and the value that you want to bring real briefly, and then we'll get right into the conversation.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I'm a dating coach for men.
Okay.
And I do work with some women, but it's predominant. I'd say 90% men. And the biggest thing that guys come to me with is having difficulty with the interaction between them and women.
Okay.
And the relationship that they have with themselves, right? Because there's a lot of insecurity, a lot of like issues that they've just held on to when they were from childhood or traumas, and their confidence is low. And then they just don't know what to do exactly once they get into those spaces with women, as well as in the bedroom. Like, so they're just.
So you teach them bedroom, like coaching?
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. I had a conversation with someone who was a sex therapist, and she says that sexologists actually get in the bedroom with you, not like performing with you, but they are in the bedroom with you, coaching you while you have sex with your partner. Is that what you do?
Yeah, just sit there with a bullhorn.
Yeah, with the. That's wild. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I mean, I'm not I say I'm a sexologist on my dating profiles, but I'm not a real sexologist. It's more so mindsets, right? Certain mindsets, and some tools here and there is like as far as what to do, but it's more so the mentality, which will then change how your behavior is.
Okay. So what are some of like the biggest challenges that you see men are dealing with that coaching is the solution for them?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is that guys are completely distracted from themselves.
What does that mean?
Well, looking back at, say, like our grandparents,
Okay.
right? They were very much absorbed into what they were doing for themselves or their family. And like, that was it.
Okay.
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 So I think what's happened is that their part of the consciousness has been brought out beyond themselves in the sense of like with social media. So, and having other identities in other places. And that, it could be, online sources, it'd be video games, social media, all across the board. And then they become very susceptible to criticism, likes, dislikes, trolls, all sorts of things. And they create like a bridge between who they are and their representative online.
Really?
And then so it starts affecting them emotionally, and along with, all the other social stuff that's going on out there, like
so you feel like,
and so on.
So you feel like social media is diluting men's understanding of themselves?
Yeah, it's diluting masculinity for sure.
Social media by itself.
Yeah.
But social media is controlled by the culture of people that exist within it. So what is it?
Mm-hmm.
So is there an issue with social media or people in general
it's a good question.
weaponizing social media for the things that people are going to do anyway?
Yeah. No, it's a good question, because it's like saying like, well, is alcohol the culprit of people developing alcoholism? And it's no, not really. It's the relationship to it.
Okay.
That is the problem.
Okay.
Right? Social media is just digital information. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have a good or badness to it.
Correct.
So it's really the association that men are developing with the apps.
Okay.
And how they're linking that to their own identities.
Okay.
And that is deeply affecting how these guys are moving out here.
So like, give me an example, like a guy today, right? What's a typical no-no that guys are doing today that are like, again with this? Like, what is it?
Okay. So a good example would be men looking at the behavior of women too much online, right? Like,
what do you mean?
Researching, going on YouTube, looking into like female nature and things like that to try to figure them out. And then it turns them sometimes into like highly critical people. And we've heard them in some of these clubhouse rooms where they're just like berating women on the behavior, like trying to like put them in corners and stuff like that. And it's just like, dude, that's putting you in like really, really unattractive energy. Like, like no woman's going to want to get with you.
It's almost like they want to like, sometimes I see, or I hear about conversations, or I'm part of conversations where I hear guys talking to women or about women as if they want to spend more time punishing women for things that they don't understand themselves, or they don't fully understand, the nature of just humanity as a whole. So because they don't understand it, they don't have the right tools in place. They just come from a very angry place, and they start just like berating women about saying, "Oh, women suck, women." And women do it too. I see that, but in the conversation about men, I just feel like they're developing a very toxic understanding of like the person that they ultimately really want to pursue.
Right.
So what's the disconnect? Like, what's keeping them from just, shutting the hell up and like getting to the basics of like, okay, this is what I want out of life. This is what I want in a partner. What's keeping them from getting to that place?
Focusing too much on women. Right?
Okay.
It really is.
Okay.
Like, because let's say like young guys saying like in their 20s.
Okay.
Like they should just be really focusing on developing who they are.
Okay.
Right? And developing the square that they stand on and trying to create their own chessboard.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, and figure themselves out for their life moving forward. And because those moves, life changes, things come up, but those things that you make for yourself really dictate a lot of things moving forward.
Okay.
And if you're taking that time, that those pivotal years focusing on women and trying to understand them and trying to chase them and try to get validation from them, that's wasted energy. That's wasted time.
Do you feel like that's different from what, like, you feel like that's a growing problem, or is that something that always existed?
I mean, it's part of human nature for sure, right? Like men want to sleep with women, right?
Really? I didn't know that. That's a new concept for me. I didn't know that. I just woke up to that reality.
I've got like a whole paper on it. You know? So,
all right, send me the pamphlet.
Right. But
okay.
it's a PowerPoint too. So Yes, but because of the way culture has influenced the minds of men,
Yeah.
it's turns that up,
Okay.
right? It's turned that energy way up, and it has to do with having high access to porn, like really easy access to porn. So sex is like on the mind constantly.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Right, and then having access to women who are like scantily flaunting themselves online. Right, you
Yeah.
go through YouTube. YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. It's like everywhere. You're getting tons of subtle signs. And
Overly simulated.
right? So it's going to be on the mind all the time. Not to mention, they're not getting any kind of play. Right?
What do you mean?
I remember reading that this generation of men has the largest number of virgins of any generation.
Stop.
In the United States.
Wait. When you say largest number of virgins,
male virgins,
but is that like marginally more or like exponentially?
Oh, I don't know. It was just an article that I was reading about it, so I'd have to look into it more. But I do remember reading that.
Now, is that by choice or is that like circumstantial? I don't know. I don't know.
Are we dudes out here being like, I'm going to be celibate?
Yeah, but okay. Are we talking about like men who are just distracted with other things? Because think about what you just said. You said men spend too much time thinking about women. They should be focusing on themselves.
Yeah.
That could potentially lead to a lot of virgin men too. No?
Right. But see, here's the thing. Like, they're also preoccupied with getting it. It's a weird mess.
Okay.
Like, they should be just focusing on themselves. And when you do that, it creates your own gravitational pull.
Okay.
You know? And
okay.
people, and like, you know, women who want to mess with you, they're going to mess with you. Right.
Okay.
So it's like, when you're doing that, you create your own gravitational field, and that draws people in. I mean, you know, just like when you're focusing on yourself, you create a greater energy about yourself, especially when it comes to, you know, your health, you know, your physical strength, your mental strength, your finances, your hobbies, like that, just your home, like all these things attract.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But a lot of guys aren't doing that, right? They're just kind of doing enough to get by, and they spend tons of time online.
So right now you keep going back to online. So I always felt like prior to online or just outside of online, there's other like influences that are impacting men's desire to like be, you know, valuable to themselves or to people in general. Sure. That might impact their confidence, that might impact, you know, the perception of themselves, as well as the actual maneuvers that they're making in the realm of their love life, their career, and so on and so forth. Like, aside from social media, like, are there any like cultural things that are like?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I would say a large one would be the beginnings of the divorce epidemic.
Is that an epidemic?
Yeah, I mean, you could call it an epidemic, but it was a surge in divorce. I think it was starting in the early 80s.
Okay,
and then so from that point, you're getting just split families, and then the result is that young men are not having access to a father figure.
Got it.
Right, because typically when judges do the ruling, typically the children go with the mother.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Unless they have like split custody or whatever, but the point is even if they have like shared custody, the father's not there as a present figure day in and day out.
So you're saying the epidemic? I got to look at the stats of like what divorce rates were like from the 80s until now. I got to look that up. But you're saying the rising split of family units.
Yes. Yeah.
Which typically removes fathers from the home the way that
Correct.
It's set up, especially if mothers are considered the caretakers. You're saying that the removal of the father from the home, which is not like an unknown statistic for a lot of people, but you're saying that alone creates a dynamic amongst men of a growing population of men that are growing up without fathers, examples of like men in general. So the decline of actual like manhood, like genuine, credible men.
Yeah, well, it's also it's two-sided, right? It's a double-edged sword. So on one side is the loss of having a father figure to model after.
Okay.
And on the other side is that you're now being raised with the mother's psychology and only her psychology. And a lot of times that turns into wanting to prove themselves to the mother. right? Trying to get her love, trying to get her appreciation, trying to get her validation. You see where this is going?
Got it.
And typically you get what's called, Dr. Robert Glover wrote a great book on this called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And basically you develop nice guy syndrome.
So because a lot of like,
otherwise known as simping in today's lingo for you young guys out there.
Okay, simping, right? So basically what you're saying is like guys who grew up with mostly their mother are now prone to want validation from their mother.
Correct.
When they were growing up, and that translated to wanting validation from women as a whole.
Yes.
I never really looked at it like that. I always thought like, okay, because men are growing up with their mothers, they're a little bit softer, they're having more of a feminine influence, and that's like deteriorating a lot of their masculinity. But
that's there too.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the part you just said, it's kind of unique in my mind, where you're considering that if they're constantly looking for validation from their mom, and that was the person that was the predominant caregiver and caretaker and so on, then they're accustomed to trying to get validation from a woman. That's their wiring now.
And looking for that person, when they're out there dating, they're looking for someone who can replace that archetype in their mind, right? So they're looking for someone to take care of them, right? And the women out here like, I don't want to take care of you.
Right.
Like, you should be able to take care of yourself.
And me. At the same time.
And me, depending on like how modern they are.
Yeah.
But even still, modern women, they want a man who can take care of himself and doing his own business, and they can like be the power couple or whatever. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So, okay, so basically the divorce epidemic, right? And
we could just call it the rise in divorce.
The rise and I like the term epidemic. It seems more like clinical and like, oh shit,
scary.
You know what I mean? Like the moment I heard that, the only thing that came to my mind was the epidemic of divorce. But okay, that's a good point you made, right? So, like ultimately, like what would you like tell a guy? Like, give me an idea of like a case of a guy. You don't have to give names. Somebody that you met, that you coached, and you saw an example of what they were doing wrong, and walk me through what you would do for them.
Well, a lot of times they'll come to me with either a past messed up relationship, or they're in a current relationship that is slipping through their fingers.
Okay.
And so we just look at their behavior of how they're dealing with their woman. So, I had this one guy, and he had just, I guess your typical, bitchy, cantankerous wife. It was all just like really tight and bitter on her.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a good solid foundation of how he was able to get into those spaces with her and just be that immovable mountain, right? Who was just calm and was grounded. And he was just as volatile as she was, right? And he had all it was the perfect storm for him because he was raised by a single mom.
Okay.
Right? Amongst like, it wasn't just him, he had like siblings as well. And so he was used to having like subversive tactics.
What do you mean?
Well, saying things in the way of like testing, right? Like testing your confidence, testing your masculinity. Like, like women will do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Shit test. He was doing that with his woman.
He was testing what?
He was just basically arguing in the same way that she was, at the same intensity. So it was basically just like two angry women arguing against one another.
Got it. He was using the energy of what his mother would probably give.
Exactly.
Got it.
He was matching her. And I was like, nah, all right, dude, you have to, first of all, stop talking so damn much.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Stop getting into arguments. Control your emotions.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'd have him doing exercises and things every single day to bring the attention back onto himself. Excuse me. To bring the attention back onto himself so that he can start cultivating that like self-appreciation sort of energy, instead of always worrying about like what she's doing, like what she said and what she's going to do and what she's thinking. It's just like, get your consciousness out of her head and put it back into your head. Where it belongs.
Okay. Okay. So what does that like ring a bell to the guys when you bring it up to them, or is it absolutely foreign?
It's foreign in the sense that when when it's spoken about in like larger things like that, larger concepts, they don't get it. But I then have to look at their conversations and like pick apart certain things. So they'll send me text messages and I'll break down their text messages.
So they'll send
like,
you the text receipts like,
yeah,
this person's not responding, or this person sent this to me. I don't know what to say.
No, or they said, I'll just see what they said. And I'm like, dude, you are sending like paragraphs of arguments to your wife. Like, what are you doing?
No,
You're just jumping right into the cesspool with her. Right. And just churning it up.
You're falling into a trap.
Right. That's her zone. She is masterful in that zone. Right.
The best way to win an argument is to not get in an argument.
Right. Or just like be calm, be still.
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind of like sumo wrestling. If you know you're like, don't necessarily try to out like weigh or out strength your opponent. Sometimes you use the opponent's weight on themselves, and you don't necessarily have to exert that kind of energy that they're bringing towards you. You can just kind of help like guide and navigate it in the right direction.
Yes, right? Yes, you can. And that takes confidence. That takes belief in yourself.
Patience.
It takes patience. Being calm.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of like in Phantom Menace.
Okay.
When Qui-Gon Jinn was fighting Darth Maul.
Okay.
And there were those force fields that kept flipping.
Yeah.
And they would get blocked from each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they would be able to fight, and then they would get blocked.
Yeah.
And then between times when they were blocked, Qui-Gon Jinn would just sit down and meditate. He'd like shut off his saber. He'd sit down, chill out.
Yeah.
Meditate. And then, when the things opened up again, he like sprung to action. He's like, all right, it's time to battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like being able to do that, like not getting so wrapped up into your emotions. Whereas like, Darth Maul, he was just pacing back and forth like an angry tiger.
Yeah.
Hitting the force field with his saber. And it's like, all right, come on. Like you can't get into it like that.
Yeah.
So I'd have to teach these guys like how to really like calm down, right? Relax. Like it's just, I'm sorry to say, but it's like, it's just a woman, right?
Hey, ladies, you guys are just women, apparently.
Yes.
So just guys, they're just women.
Well, sure.
Relax. They're not like, come on.
Right. And not godlike beings. There's no queens. I mean, you see the pale blue dot? You know the pale blue dot, right?
No.
Where they took, what's that telescope that we have that we sent farthest out into space? It's one of the telescopes. It's like way the hell out there. And they turned it around to focus on Earth and took a picture of the Earth. And you see like this big band of the Milky Way, and there's this teeny tiny blue speck.
Okay.
Right. And it's like, that's what I mean by like, it's like getting some perspective.
Got it. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Minuscule creatures, like get out of our egos. It's okay.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's not the end of the world. You haven't pissed off a deity. Right.
So wait, so how does this translate to like how men are interacting with women when it comes to like the courtship process? Like, what are you seeing out there?
Oh, well, I mean, you've seen it as well. They're, because of the influences. So combine nice guy or simpism, right, with this access. Okay. Cause there's always been nice guy simps. Okay. Always.
Describe to everybody what a simp is.
Okay. A simp in the most simplistic terms is a man who pedestalizes a woman to his own detriment.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Be it physical detriment, financial detriment, emotional detriment, like, or all of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And those are the worst ones, who just basically fall on their own swords.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's no fault of their own, because like basically starting back the Romanticist period.
Yeah.
That's when everything started changing into romance.
Right.
And it became a trope of like basically, men falling on their sword for women. Right. And, or for the attentions of women, or expressing their love for women.
Or for the opportunity.
Right. And so that still carries on today. Romanticism hasn't gone anywhere, it's just morphed. But so you see it with guys just blowing up women's DMs. Okay.
I can never understand that. Like there's a lot of like ladies that I'm friends with that I converse with, and they talk to me about like what people say in their DMs, who reaches out to them. And that, I think that creates a little bit more of the conflict where guys themselves are contributing to the problem that they're experiencing with women, because social media, although it by itself, yes, is not the issue, but it kind of creates this exponential problem.
Yeah.
Right. So now the average woman who, although is a good looking woman on her own right, like accentuates her value in society based on how many people are DMing her or liking her, and how far she can push the limits of what she can expose to get certain types of attention. And it just creates this force field that men have to like feel they have to be this overly aggressive, overly like attentive person to compete with thousands of people that are talking to her. So the guy's like, hi, hey, what's going on? What's going on? And I never understood that, because if you're not getting the results that you're looking for from doing that, why do you continue?
Right. Well, probably because they had some modicum of success somewhere.
Okay.
Right. So they're like, oh, I got a hit, right? I got a nibble.
Yeah.
So they just keep going, or they can't control themselves, right? Because you're very emotional.
Yeah.
Men. So they're being, I think there's something going on to purposely accentuate them getting more into their emotions. Because when you can control someone's feelings,
okay,
you can then control their behavior.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Or you can influence their feelings, you can control their behavior.
So whose feelings are being controlled?
Well, they're being men's feelings are being influenced, right?
Okay.
I mean, there's I think there's a large swath of just I don't even know what to call it, but there's something being like gently laid down over the fabric of men in society that's making them more emotive, more effeminate, and more easily accessed through their emotions. And you can see it a lot in advertising, right? Because that's what advertising does. It's their goal is to get into your emotions to make you purchase something.
Yeah.
And a lot of marketing and advertising is switching their gears the way they used to, from what they used to market towards men, into a different way. And it's very interesting to see what's going on.
So you mentioned simping, right? So like from the outside, if you describe a guy like that is simping, is doing something that is excessive, people from the outside might call it necessary, right? Meaning like, if a guy like goes and he buys flowers for a girl.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
He does all these romantic gestures to try to win her favor.
Yeah.
A lot of women in particular will say, men should be doing this. How come I can't get wooed? I can't get this, that, and the third. But the guys that are doing that aren't the ones getting the action or getting, the favors that they're pursuing. Like, right. So how do you explain that dynamic right there?
Well, what they're doing is they are placating to the general female, mating pattern, right? They're appealing towards the female mating imperative.
Okay.
And so they're basically falling into their frame. I don't even know about like frame control, but like,
okay,
they're basically presenting themselves as a means to like win the favor, win the appeal of women, which suits their dating imperative, which is like women are sitting here like, okay, I've got all these suitors here, and I'm going to choose which of the
But
best.
They don't like any of those guys.
No,
so it doesn't really help women to be in that position anyway,
right,
because
but it feels good.
Momentarily, it validates.
Good.
It validates your existence. It validates your
right. Because check this out: you get alpha widowed. So you're a woman.
Alpha
you get
widowed. What is that? What does that even mean? You gotta like
right,
give
so
me
you're,
context.
So you're like so you're a woman and you get with this dude and he hits that G spot in your brain as well as the G spot between your legs. Like this guy's
that's
like
called alpha widowed.
No. I'm saying like he's just doing it well, and you're like. And he's living his life in a certain way, and he moves a certain way, thinks a certain way, speaks a certain way, and you're like, that's the dude.
Yeah.
Like, I want his babies.
Sure.
Right? Either like consciously or unconsciously, like that's being decided. And he's like, I'm not really like that. I'm going to see you later.
Okay.
And moves along. He just keeps moving. And she's going to be like, she's going to be crestfallen. Okay.
Okay.
Like, oh my God. Like, that was an example of one of the guys that I'm really looking for.
Yeah.
And he wanted to leave.
Okay.
So she gets alpha widowed. Now, the ones who are in vast majority are these like very placating, very generous, very nice guys who don't have that. They don't have that ish.
Yeah.
So though it kind of feels good, it's kind of like eating junk food. Like when you're really hungry, you want that nourishment.
Okay.
You're like, I'll take a bag of chips. It'll do the job, right, of like curing a little bit of hunger, but it doesn't really satisfy you.
So are you saying the women that are creating the frame of welcoming suitors that they don't even like are often the women that had a quality guy that they were looking for leave?
No. I'm just saying there's no, because there's not enough like those kind of dudes around.
Well, they get around.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, I've seen the statistics where there's like, communities where you see like where there's like, what am I trying to say here? Basically, a few number of men are sleeping with the majority of women. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like the other guys are just kind of like, they're
trying
doing
to get scraps.
Yeah. Or they're just arguing amongst themselves about why it's happening.
Okay. I know the communities where that exists.
And it's just like, but see, that's the thing, right? Because that's falling into the frame as well. When you start worrying about too much of these statistics and like divorce rates and, what kind of guys are getting this, and the dudes with the symmetrical face and the square jawline, and the guys who are over 6 feet tall, and all those like markers of like discussion and argument, and they even start bickering about the facts between all of these things, and they start pulling up reports and like, this is what the census says, and right, that's again like still falling into that frame. Okay. Whereas that guy that I mentioned, who may or may not be the producer of Alpha Widows, he's not thinking about any of that. He's the buyer.
Yeah.
That's all he's thinking about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like my mentor, he's like, it's kind of like you're walking down the street and there's 2 burger joints, and both burger joints are like, we have the best burgers in town.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you go over here and you're like, well, what are you doing? And you kind of assess their business and their food and their quality. You try that. And then you look at over there and you try that. And you have the power of the buyer, right?
Okay.
And that's a mentality. And it doesn't mean when you choose one or the other, or one over the other, it doesn't mean the other one's crap. It's just you like that one better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times that other burger joint will get into their feeling and be like, oh man,
yeah,
I haven't succeeded in getting that buyer's money.
Yeah.
And they'll like kind of settle for other customers.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
But when you say settle for other customers, like
simps. So
I don't know if they're necessarily settling for them, because at the end of the day, like a man who
no, they're settling. The majority of women who get married, they marry their second or third choice.
Damn, that is wild. You're telling me, hold on. So what gives you the impression that like a woman is often marrying like someone that wasn't their first choice?
All right, check it out.
That's a crazy concept to think of, because now I'm like looking at all marriages like, you might not have been the one, sir.
Right. No, I'm serious. Like, check it out. You say like you got like a group of 100 people.
Okay.
And you say like 100 women, and then you've got 100 men. Okay. Let's say 10% of those men are the dudes who the majority of those women are like checking out and like really wanting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And after talking with them, interacting with them, they're like, oh yeah, definitely. Those 10% guys, I want those dudes.
Okay.
But some of them will get married. So that 10% guys, some of them will get married. Some of them will just leave.
Yeah.
Some of them will go do something else.
Yeah.
Right. And so that like reduces that 10%. Right. So there's only going to be a few people who are really, really wanted to be like that guy, to be that husband. And then the other guys, they're, when time comes or whatever, the ladies in that room, they're going to be choosing the best of what's available.
What's left? By then
because
it might
there's
be
just
too late.
Simply not enough of those guys.
I feel you, but like that's also relative, right? Like someone who is in the top 10% of men is relative, because if you're discussing income, if you're discussing height, if you're talking about looks, if you're talking about actual like testosterone levels and masculinity as a whole, like in behavior, like those fall along an equation of different things. So like,
and that 10% of guys in that room, they're all going to vary between each other. But
Sure.
the fact remains is 10% of those guys are more desirable than the rest.
I mean, sure, like top 10%, top 20%.
I'm
talking about
speaking.
like a woman might be looking for the best of the best, but at the same time, how does she know really what the best of the best is if she hasn't really experienced all of those guys? Because there are some women who might have experienced a certain level of guys, and that's enough for her, right? Mm-hmm. She might imagine, like through conversation, right? Especially women who are virgins or women who like.
Wait, there's virgins?
Huh? What?
There's virgins?
I've met them. I'm giving an extreme example to describe like women who have a different cultural experience, especially ones who come from certain countries that are a little bit more modest or come from religious upbringing. They have a different perspective of what standard to give themselves. So them, digging through the crate for like the creme de la creme, it's all relative to them, right? So they might have an idea that they do have the best because that might be the best that they've ever experienced, right? And the top 10%, as you call it, might not have gotten to them. Now, to your point, if that woman did experience that, because I've heard stories from men, or even just women, right, where a guy and a woman will get together and they rock each other's world, and specifically the woman will fantasize about this guy and could never be satisfied about anything else.
Yeah.
Or anyone else.
Yep.
Right? So
it's like that Sex Life show.
What's Sex Life show?
On Netflix? You haven't seen Sex Life?
No, I saw a tidbit on it, but I didn't see the show.
Oh, you gotta check it out. I mean, it's like it's exaggerated.
Yeah.
But basically this party girl in New York City.
Sounds about right.
Does her thing, right? Living it up, in her 20s. And she meets this guy who's a music producer from Australia.
Of course.
He's completely just all sex. Like his whole appeal is just like dripping with sex. And not to mention he's like hung like a horse.
Of course he is. Why not? Why wouldn't it be?
Right.
Freaking Australian.
Right. And so I don't know. But so he's just like this guy, and she's like, holy shit. It's like the sort of thing, like adventurous. They're going like breaking into people's property, like having sex in their fountains and shit.
Yeah.
Like it's just wild.
Yeah.
But he's also volatile. Like he's not emotionally mature. He like flips out. Just
as per usual,
makes her feel like crap sometimes. Just breaks her down, and eventually he like kicks her out, and she's like, I can't deal with this. And then she meets this great guy.
Plan B.
Well, no, but I mean at the time it was like he's a great guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's tall, but not as tall. He's good looking, but not quite as good looking. Whereas like the first dude, he's a 10. The other guy, he's like an 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But he's like well put together. He's predictable. He's got a fantastic job in finance.
Yeah.
He owns a home by himself in Connecticut as well as an apartment in New York.
Okay.
Like he's got like plans to like build something outside of the city. And they grow a relationship, and sorry, spoilers. So, and they're loving it, but they have the kids, do the whole thing, and now she starts thinking. It's like creeps in. She starts fantasizing because what she's getting, which was, she wants that explosive sex. Right?
Yeah.
Dudes, women want explosive sex. They don't want boring shit.
Of course.
Right? And like just like blows their mind, like splits their soul in half.
Yeah, but explosive sex is
energetically
understood,
emotionally
understood. Right. That's also relative.
I don't mean like physically splitting them.
Sometimes no one should be in pieces. At the end of
sometimes that's necessary, but anyways, she's not getting that, and she's fantasizing about when she did.
Yeah, of course.
Right, she's been alpha widowed. She's like, oh dang, she's just writing about all of her adventures and trysts with this guy. Yeah. The husband finds that shit and it just shatters like so much.
So I imagine a lot of men, whether they're in the top 10% or not, however you want to explain those numbers, has been an alpha to some woman where that man was their peak.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I still agree that, the proportions are like there's certain men who have a lot more of that persona than others. But like, let's say if I was, I don't know where I rank. People might gauge me.
Well, really, it comes down to how the man makes a woman feel.
Understood. That's what I'm saying. So, so if a man has access to a particular woman, whatever range she is in the dating pool, he might be able to make her feel some type of way because of how he connects with her.
Yeah.
Right. And because of that, he raises the bar for her in her mind.
Oh, yeah.
But that man might not necessarily be a bar raiser to another woman.
Correct.
Right? So I think we're all kind of jumbling what a standard is, regardless of where a man might place themselves.
And that's where guys get caught up.
Okay.
Because they get caught up on a lot of this external stuff.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, man, I'm only 5'9".
Yeah.
Right?
You could have rocked somebody's world at 5'9".
No, but for the most part, women don't care.
Women don't care about what?
How tall you are. I mean, unless you're like really, really short.
On paper, they do.
Yeah, on paper they do. They actually don't care.
And what are you gauging? What are you basing that off of?
The fact that I know how women work. They work on how you make them feel.
Of course.
Your height isn't going to make them. It's from a distance. She'll just like see a dude who's like tall and like it's attention grabbing. And she, woo, like look at that tall guy.
That's what I mean by on paper. So for you to even get in a room to compete and get to the point where you're interacting with her feelings, sometimes the cover of the book will get you through the door. Right?
Yeah, but if you have a poor relationship with yourself, you have no game. Then,
of course, you're not staying in a room.
Right.
That's what I say. That's what I say when it comes to women.
They're great for attention, or you've got like a great job, you've got a nice car, whatever.
Yeah.
Sure. Like that works as an attention grabber.
Yes.
Okay. But that doesn't guarantee quality.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's where a lot of dudes fall short. I was working with a dude who he owned a penthouse in Manhattan. He was part of a car club. So he had like access to every awesome vehicle you possibly have.
Mm-hmm.
He was an entrepreneur and he had access to extremely beautiful women, all 10s. And he couldn't keep them. And he was like, what am I doing here? Like, I've got all the things, like, and also genetically gifted. Like, he was tall. I mean, not super tall, but he was like 6'1" or 6'2". Just great aesthetic. Okay. Just by nature. And so on paper, he should be winning, but he wasn't. He wasn't.
So
winning.
was it okay? So I have a rebuttal to that, right?
Yeah.
So is it because he didn't have what it takes to keep a woman?
Mm-hmm.
That's option number one.
All right.
Or he himself was alpha widowed, meaning I happen to think that, and I'm saying this from experience. Sometimes when you have too much access to too many women, right? Your bar just keeps becoming an unreachable thing, right? So he might have like...
Well, men have their own hypergamy as well.
What do you mean?
Like, you're familiar with hypergamy.
Sure.
Yes. Men have hypergamy as well.
In what sense? Explain.
Well, it's not in the way for women, which is like provision and things like that, security, social standing, and so on. Ours is like attractiveness, health, marriageability, things like that. So you could be like starting like low level, you're like messing with like 3s and 4s, and then you like start building yourself and having great access. Your network starts growing, your social circle starts growing. You're like, oh, now I've got access to that chick. She's like a 5'6".
Exactly.
And it just keeps going and going and going.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
But that's not getting widowed.
Shh. In either case, the point is he's had access to so many great looking women, whether they were good people or not, that's a different conversation. But he might have access to women that are stimulating him in a particular way. And there might be certain women that stimulate him so much that, let's say, that one person might have gone away for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Everybody else doesn't really seem worth spending time with.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, usually it's him, though, when they go away.
Sure. But even if they do, he might not even find satisfaction with those women that he's calling a 10.
Right.
And that's probably contributing to why he's probably not like putting in any real effort to secure any one of them. Because let's be honest,
but in his case,
okay.
I definitely know what you're saying.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it exists.
Mm-hmm.
But in his case, he couldn't keep them. Right.
Okay.
He wanted to. Like, he really wanted to. He wanted a wife.
What was he doing? What was he doing wrong?
He couldn't keep them because inside he was still a nice guy. He still had nice guy syndrome despite being born with great genetics.
So you're telling me
a great career
a guy with that
opportunities.
kind of money,
Yeah.
penthouse in Manhattan,
Yeah.
you know, cars, money, good looks, and this,
Mhm.
that, and the third. And I know those guys. Like, you're saying, despite the fact that he had all these external assets,
Mhm.
that men are chased around for,
Correct.
right? Like women seek those types of attributes
Right.
on paper.
Because to them, in their heads, they start equating that with a real man.
Who?
Women.
Okay.
Right?
So what keeps them from saying?
In their heads, they start equating those things. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, he's tall. Then they start associating a feeling with that.
Yeah.
Like, I can feel safe with a tall guy, not
Yeah.
knowing that he's a complete wimp. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and the same sort of thing happens with his appearance, with finances,
Yeah.
with his home, like all these things. They're just these visual markers that then get cast into fantasies with emotional attachments to them, which turns into beliefs.
Okay.
Right. So they start looking at these guys with a belief about them. Then when they start having interaction, that's when it shatters. That's when the belief gets shattered, and they're like, oh, like he's just like every other guy. He just has
he's
great
a narcissist.
great genetics, great opportunities with work, and so on and so on. And he just happened to have this.
Yeah.
But inside, he's still just as simpy as all the other dudes that hit me up. He just has a better lifestyle.
Okay. So you speak as if you figured it out for yourself. So I imagine you went through a journey.
Yeah.
Right? I'm pretty sure you didn't wake up with all this knowledge and understanding and these cues that you can pick up on. Like, what's your story? Like, how did you come to a point where this was a very important topic for you, a very important journey to help men?
Well, it started with copious amounts of LSD.
Oh, well, there's that. Well, damn. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I ate a whole 12 strip of LSD and then I woke up. No, it was a long journey, and see, that's the thing with manhood. It is a lifelong journey, right?
Okay.
You're never done, because once you start the path of self-work, introspection, and development, you realize that there's no, it's like climbing a mountain and there's fog, and then you get up to a level and then the fog clears a little bit and you're like, oh, there's another level.
Okay.
And you go for that.
Okay.
Right. And it just keeps going and going until you're dead.
Okay.
But what happened with me was actually when I was younger in college, I was what you would call a natural. Like, I was naturally good with women and I didn't even think about it. It was just, it was not separated. The way we're able to sit here and talk about these concepts as though they're separated from ourselves.
Yeah.
It didn't even cross my mind. I was living in it.
Yeah.
And it was almost like being a tiger that didn't know it was a tiger, but it was just like, I'm just good at killing shit. Like, I don't get it. It just had no awareness of itself.
Just the phrase is
right.
Hilarious. Okay.
So then I had met this lady who had become my wife. And then that's when my own nice guy, because a lot of these things can sit dormant for a long time until you have the right kind of stimulation under the right kind of conditions. Okay. And then it's like, taking those, like freeze dried food and you put a couple drops of water on it. It's like starts blooming out, So it was like that. And so
turned you into mush.
Right. So my nice guy stuff from inside started coming to life. And it really started to change my wife's mood and the way she saw me, because she had a particular vision, right? I mentioned the fantasy, right? She had this particular vision of me and a belief of who I was. Then when the certain behaviors and speech and thought patterns started counteracting that, there was like a feedback.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it would started degrading our connection.
Yeah.
And it got so bad where she would, start henpecking me to do certain things, which would drive down my confidence, which would piss her off, which would cause more henpecking. And it just turned into this thing that just ended up just driving my confidence into the ground.
Okay.
And then we eventually, I asked for a divorce because I just felt so terrible that I could no longer take it anymore. And I was look, I want to file for divorce. So we got divorced. And during that period, those last few months, that's when I started doing a lot of research online.
Okay.
Right. And getting some books here and there about like, just self-help, but for men specifically.
Got it.
And I found, first I found MGTOW, right? Which is the men going their own way.
Okay.
Right. And I was exposed to a lot of helpful knowledge and some really good books. Okay. But I was surrounded by all these guys who were like really pissed off. And I was pissed off too.
Explain to people what MGTOW is. Yeah, I know what it is.
Right. So it's men going their own way. And it's basically men who have gone through something incredibly traumatic, usually divorce, and they decide to check out, meaning they decide to leave women alone. They don't want anything to do with them. No dating, no sex, no marriage. Forget it. Damn. I'm done. I'm doing something else. I'm going my own way. Yeah. Right. And so,
which is the very thing you mentioned earlier today, that men spend too much time focusing on women.
Right, but they still want, eventually.
But these guys don't even want.
No, they just cut it and they're done.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So I had
they're done.
Yep. So I had my experience with those guys, but then I was healing, right? And so I no longer associated with them. I was like, oh shit, like I'm just around these dudes who are just like pissed off and hurt all the time, and they have no desire to get any better.
Got it.
So I started moving out of that.
They're just content with the disadvantages that they feel they have.
Yes. And there are some fantastic guys and things that have come from that, like men working towards like changing men's rights in the courtroom. When it comes to like family court and things of that nature. So men's right advocates are in there. So some good things have come of that, I believe. But I moved away from that. And then I found the red pill, and like I needed to get out there and date some more. So I started like studying like old school like pickup stuff.
Okay.
Which has morphed quite a bit because of social media and dating apps and so on. And then that brought me into another phase. And then I just kind of like put that down because I realized, like, again, with the red pill, there's this phase in the red pill called the red pill rage.
What is that?
Well, it's when they
explain to people what red pill is.
All right, red pill,
I know what it is. I understand what that community is. I don't necessarily subscribe to it myself, but yeah, go ahead.
It's essentially coming to an understanding of how men and women are actually moving out there.
Okay.
And the truth of it. And it has nothing to do with what we've been conditioned to understand romance and dating and relationships to actually be.
Okay.
All right. And a lot of it has to do with biology and so on, but whatever. Guys can get really stuck in that.
Yeah.
Right. They get emotionally attached to that, and they get really pissed off. We've heard a lot of them on Clubhouse. Where they're just bickering about female nature and all this stuff. And they get into arguments with women and arguments with each other about the details of like what's real red pill and all that stuff. And it's just like, oh my God,
this is not a gang.
Come on.
It's like Bloods and Crips out here.
Right. And so I took what was useful and just kind of grew from that. And I turned around, right? Because then I started having greater success with my life in terms of women. And I'm just like, because I like women. I like spending time with women. They're enjoyable. Yeah. They're fun, especially once you gain a more solid internal structure.
Yeah.
Where you're no longer bothered by the dumb shit that they do sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't get under your skin anymore, and it's almost sometimes laughable.
Yeah.
Right? And then just you have a lighter energy, a lighter heart, you can have more fun and love fun, right?
Okay.
So, Cyndi Lauper said it, girls just want to have fun.
Yeah.
Right? So then I turned around and I was like, well, I'm experiencing a great life, like after having gone through hell.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of guys like me. So I just turned around and started a business to help these guys,
Wow, that's quite the journey.
And it was actually a woman that brought me to that, because I was just doing it on the low. And she's like, Justin, it was a girl that I was seeing for a while, and she said, you're pretty good at this. Like, why don't you just turn this into a business?
Yeah.
So we talked about like how it could work and what it looked like, and so I've heard to thank.
That's a beautiful story, but it's also like making me want to ask some questions, right?
Yeah.
So you said that when you got married, prior to you getting married, you were naturally a tiger, who
I was naturally good with women. Yeah.
Naturally good with women. But when you got married, for lack of a better word, you softened up.
Yeah. I became complacent.
You became complacent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you grow up with your father in the house?
Partially.
What does that mean?
Well, he was in my life all up until about 7. Well, no, he left my family when I was 7, but I stayed with him until, like, he was part of my life on a regular basis up until I think maybe 10 or 11 years old, maybe 12.
Okay.
And then my mom fought for full custody, and which she shouldn't have done, because she was like making up problems that didn't exist.
Yeah.
I don't know why she did that, but anyways, but that's what happened with me. So that's where my nice guy stuff came from.
Right. So, and that's exactly what the question. So your mom became the primary caretaker after 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And did you experience the very same like validation seeking mindset that you described?
Mm-hmm.
So even though you were naturally good with women internally.
Well, no, this was when I was a child.
Okay.
I wasn't naturally good with women at 10.
I didn't say that. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying is when you became naturally good with women, you were still internally
seeking validation. Yes.
But it only came out when you were with a woman that you married and secured yourself with.
Yeah.
Okay. So, which is kind of alarming because for anyone's demons to come out when they're in the brink of a long-term relationship is kind of leaves a lot of uncertainty with self.
Yeah.
So like you don't know who you're going to be when you end up in a relationship.
Well, that's most people.
Of course, but I'm just raising the awareness of like, even though you might feel some type of way, like being with somebody for a long time might bring certain parts of you that you might not even know exist.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Which is the thing that I'm just kind of like weary about as a whole, because now I'm wondering like, okay, if I decide to marry somebody and then there's certain parts about them that triggers certain aspects of me that was like embedded from so long ago, I have no idea what that would even look like.
Absolutely. So you could be extremely self-aware.
Okay.
But there's going to be some things, but like there's things you know, there's things you don't know, and there's things you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah.
And that last part, there's only certain things that can come out in a relationship, no matter how much self-knowledge you have, right? And people are becoming just like really chicken shit.
What do you mean?
Like they're afraid, like they've experienced that sort of thing.
Okay.
Right? And they get afraid, right? They get afraid of being seen, for one, and afraid of having to deal with the other person's stuff, because then now you have to be responsible, right? You have to be able to, if you care about them, you have to be able to like deal with them when these things come up. You can't just be like, oh, I don't, but you know what they do? They say, I don't like that. I'm just going to go somewhere else, because now we have a huge plethora of choice.
Yeah.
Why would we have to deal with someone's bullshit when we can just easily find somebody else in a matter of days?
Are you talking about dating apps or just like
yes?
So how do you feel about dating apps?
They're dry. I enjoy the texting process. It's fun. Like I like that online banter.
Okay.
And
you
like,
do. I don't.
No, I like it because just it's like fencing.
Okay.
Right? Because especially if you're dealing with somebody who really knows how to converse. That's the problem. That's a rare breed. Right, but that's where the fun, like the real fun is. The other time it's fun, but it's like you're kind of like it's kind of like I'm fencing with like like an adolescent. And that can be fun too, because they're letting you take the lead.
What?
Yes. Oh, come on. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean, but just like the phrasing is just like interesting to me, because like I know what you mean, but I want to make sure like everyone understands the context of what you're talking about. So I would imagine what you're talking about is
someone who is less skilled.
Exactly. So you're basically, I guess, mastered the skill of like how to converse with people online, so much so that the people that you're communicating with are at a lower level, and you're just kind of like tossing your sword around, figuratively, of conversation, and they're just thinking that they're trying to gain position in a conversation that you've already predicted half of it.
I'm steps ahead.
You're leaps ahead in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that in multiple ways, and that's part of the reason why I don't care much for like texting, because a lot of times like people don't even know how to have real conversations anyway, let alone text properly. I don't even know what properly texting is. Texting properly is not texting.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
Like, if you know how to have a conversation, you should be willing to have a conversation and not hide behind a text. Yeah. Right?
But see, that's the thing. What I like in terms of like dating and stuff, like when I'm working with a guy, it's what I'm teaching them essentially is how to make the woman want them.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
That's basically what it comes down to. Not to express yourself, I want you. It's like you want to make it so they want you.
Of course.
As the woman wants you. So like that's where the creativity comes in when it comes to these text interactions, and being able to make them want to now hear your voice as you're sending a voice note.
Of course.
Right? Or sending a video. Then it's like goes onto the phone, right? So you're constantly like upping the ante, creating more access points for her to want you more.
And creating intrigue.
Yes.
Right. And I experienced that, and that's not the issue. My conflict with texting, especially whether it's like online dating or just in general like exchanges on phone with strangers that you haven't met, is think about what we said earlier when it came to like, I don't know, DMs and guys like loading up people's DMs. The population of men that like are constantly DMing women.
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing.
Fine. But at the same time, it's creating an imbalance, right? So a woman who is online dating, whether it's through social media or direct dating apps or whatever, the amount of messages that she gets inundated with, I can only imagine.
Oh yeah. Right? Yeah. I've verified it. I was like not dating, but like kind of like, F buddies with this one girl, and we were cool. Like we were like friends first. So we had like a very like chill attitude about it. And, the sex was just once in a while sort of thing. But I was at a place, we're lying in bed and just kind of thumbing through our phones. And I said, hey, open up your IG DMs. I just want to see.
Okay.
The amount of haze. It was ridiculous.
Hey.
Like you think it's like a trope where women just complain about like because they see it sometimes and it just becomes this like common thing to complain about. You see it on like guys just say hey too much. It's real.
Yeah.
It's absolutely real. They're just sitting out there just writing women hey, or hey with a heart, or hey with fire, or maybe if they're being really creative, do hey with like heart eye emojis.
What?
Yeah.
The reason why I'm cracking up.
And she's just flipping through it. I was like, holy shit. It was like hundreds. Granted, this girl was like a, I don't want to say like low level, but she wasn't like super high level IG model. She was an IG model, but not like, hundreds of thousands of followers.
I got you, but it doesn't even take hundreds of thousands of followers.
No, she was around like 14K.
Doesn't matter. The quantity of followers, I'm not even worried about.
Right.
It's more so like guys aren't hitting up your DMs based on your follower account. Right?
No, I mentioned that just to give you an idea, because typically the hotter the woman or the more, risque she can be with that hot body that she has, the greater follower.
Absolutely. I get that. But a hot woman could delete her DMs.
Right.
Delete her account today, start a new one. In 4 days, her phone's on fire.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So that's why I'm not really looking at the count. Like if you're a good looking person. So if you're a man interacting with a woman that is potentially a good match for you, you have to navigate the fact that her mind is inundated with so many messages. Oh, right? Yeah. So you're kind of like at a disadvantage already. This is the part of the reason why I don't favor the whole texting thing, because you could have texted something really witty, something really catching, but if 400 guys text, you're now on the bottom of the list, right?
Right.
So at some, like within 2 messages, you got to be catchy enough where she's willing to scroll back to you.
Of course.
Right? But the growing population of hey is just a cancer that is growing in the person's DMs.
Sure.
Right?
Well, that's why you need to be impactful.
Of course.
Right? And there's an art form to it. Like
Okay.
you really have to be impactful. And you have to be very, very clear and concise with what you say and how you say it, and be creative. And really you have to cultivate that creativity. It's not something that you can just do. Like, yeah, some people have that gift,
Okay.
but it's not something that your average guy could do. The majority of guys can't do this. It's something you actually have to cultivate, just like any other art form. Like,
of course,
communication is something we're born with or something that we develop, but to take it beyond that is something you have to cultivate.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Just like drawing or playing an instrument or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. I'm not discrediting that. Like, there are things you can do to like
increase the
yes,
those chances.
But I'll be honest with you, I no longer like. I'm starting to sound like a damn big tail. I no longer really want to like play that game. I'm more so like I text to navigate myself to have the phone conversation. Right. I don't text to like grow wittiness and like do like I'm just not. It's just not what it is, and it works for me. Right. Yeah,
sure. If your game works for you,
I don't call it. It's not game.
Forget it. Then don't get hung up on the words. But whatever strategy you use,
I don't even want to call it strategy. It's more so like
it is a strategy.
It's not a strategy.
Whatever you do in your life, is that better for you? Whatever you do in your life that gets you the things that you want, which is in this example a phone call, right?
Okay.
Whatever you're doing to gain that end, then if it's working, then great.
I think it's more of a reflection of what I'm not doing. That's getting me access to things that I want. Meaning, like, I'm not doing the things that, because I feel as though guys who are texting a lot could be like crucifying themselves by saying things that are unnecessary, things that are taken out of context, and they could potentially be wasting a lot of time. So the spark that they gain with someone that they found online is diminished because they're just texting for far too long and way too much.
Well, yeah, sure. Like, you eventually want to get it into some form of human interaction that's more human.
Yes.
And the first stage is like, getting on the phone call or video
or meeting in person. I mean, I don't believe in meeting in person until you had a conversation, because there's a lot of strange women out there. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
All right.
There are. But it's, my background is art. So it's like I enjoy.
My background is art too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I've been an illustrator for like 20 years.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Doing like science fiction.
The tattoos.
Right. Science fiction book covers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I really enjoy the creative aspect of being able to like spin up a woman's imagination and her emotions, and then how she perceives me within that imagination.
Yes.
Right. Like, I really, really like that. And I can extend that from text to voice notes to video to the phone call to the in-person.
Sure. And I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I think the only difference is, I guess, in this conversation, and I'm not discrediting
the chase.
Huh?
You like to cut to the chase.
I like to cut to the chase, specifically when we're doing text. Because the problem with text, I feel, is there's a gap between what is being interpreted and what your natural self is actually communicating, right? Because when you say something to someone, and when you have voice inflection, when you have facial reactions, when you say certain things, like, it gets picked up in a more intentional way. Yep. Whereas somebody might read something, right? Depending on what mood they're in, or how many guys said the same thing, right?
Right.
Or like their ability to interpret words in general, right? Because that's a thing, right? They might, whatever you do might not, whatever result you get might not be a true representation of what you actually did, right? Especially when there's a growing population of haste, and people loading up DMs.
Well, that's why I said it's really important to be very clear, concise, and impactful.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Being clear and concise to me is like, you can have like an exchange just to kind of get to know the basics of somebody.
Right.
But then be intentional and be like, listen, like, we should continue this on the phone.
Right.
Things like that, right? And some women are for that, some are not. Just in my opinion, in my experience, if you get good at texting, what you're doing is getting good at texting. you're not necessarily getting good at being intentional and driving a
Right,
and I'm not saying you're not like doing that. I'm just saying some guys, they focus, I'm going to show you how to be a great texter.
That's absolutely what does happen because, guys too, they're spending a lot of time on their phones.
Right.
Just like women are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The basis, like I said, like with the work that I do, it's about shedding, first of all, like shedding a lot of like beliefs that you've acquired that don't help you.
Okay.
But the end goal is to gain a really strong relationship with yourself.
Okay.
And then being able to learn how to creatively express that self while also, as a man, being able to embody your sexual nature, because there's a lot of narrative out there, right, that you're well aware of. That's like expressing yourself sexually as a man is looked down upon, right?
How do you feel about that?
I don't care. I don't think about it. I just express myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so once you're comfortable with that and you accept yourself and not worry about what other people are thinking, what society's thinking, what women are thinking, that's just not even part of your thought process. It's about what the person in the mirror thinks.
Okay.
Right. Then you start understanding that, because you're like, whoa, okay, so I'm different. I'm the only one of me. And then you're there for an opportunity. Right. So all that stuff with like, I'm on the phone with the texting, all this stuff, and there's like all these other guys in there with the haze piling on top of yours. Like, that's seeing the self as an option.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys will consider that instead of having a better relationship with the self and saying, then I'm an opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, once you start embodying that sort of mentality, along with having a great relationship with yourself and doing things that are good for you, and making you stand out because you're the only you. Yeah. Right?
Okay.
Whereas like a lot of guys are just wanting to figure out how to fit into a general consensus of what's acceptable and attractive.
Got it. Just finding comfort in your independence and your uniqueness, and not worry about trying to be like the guys who get what you want.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? No, and that makes complete sense. So like if a guy lands a date with a woman, right? What are you seeing, like some of the people that you're coaching or just in general, that they're doing wrong in the process of courtship in general?
They are, one of really big one is self-depreciating jokes.
What?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like, well, they'll say a joke that brings down their own value.
Give me an example.
Because you never heard a self-depreciating joke? Like
I'm just trying to imagine it in the context of a guy in the presence of a woman. He'll say something bad about himself.
They'll just make it, but it'll be a joke, right? They'll like joke about their height or something like that. They'll joke about the clothes they're wearing. They'll joke about a hobby that they have, but it's all in a way of like knocking it down a peg. Like that's something that they actually do.
Yeah, but is it something that they do towards things that they're insecure about?
No, not necessarily.
Because sometimes I do this thing.
Because like what it is to lighten, and what it is, it's an attempt. There's this thing of discomfort that they have, and it's what they're doing is to lighten the mood, right? Because they're trying to say they're trying to bring down their own vibe to present to the woman, I'm less of a threat to you, right?
So I'm thinking about it. The reason why I'm trippy is like,
yeah, you're saying there was something that you do.
No. It's not that it's something that I do, but then I have to like ask myself like, so sometimes I'll do this thing, right? Like I do both, right? I talk myself up and I also like make fun of things, but it's in the context of like sometimes a woman will be like very complimentary towards me, right? I mean, look at me, I'm fucking amazing. But anyway, I'll be out with a woman, and like she might like my shirt that I'm wearing, clothes that I'm wearing, or she might like my car or something like that. And then she'll be like, "Oh, that's a nice," and I'll be like, I'll just do that. But I'm not gonna be like, "Oh yeah, you like it? It's great." Like that.
Right.
Like so. I don't know if that's considered
right. No. What instead of just being like like whatever. I mean, you're just not. It's not that important to you.
Okay.
If you were to say you're like wearing a suit, and she's like, "Oh, you look great in your suit," right? And you're like, "Oh, actually, I bought it like a couple years ago. It's really kind of old." And
that's wait, people do that?
Yeah, they'll depreciate themselves.
Oh yeah. No, I don't do that.
Right.
I don't do that.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm like, you like the suit? Yeah, good, because you have good taste. That's why.
Uh-huh.
That's what I say. You know what I mean? Like, you have good taste. Good. You're gonna do well on this date.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But that's me, because I'm an asshole.
Right. But there's and they actually follow that narrative, like that women don't like cocky guys. Women like cocky guys.
Oh yeah.
For the most part.
Okay, I got you.
And so what they're doing is listening to that narrative, which is completely unhelpful. And they depreciate themselves. They lower themselves.
Yeah.
So that they can present an energy to a woman that says, I'm less of a threat. You don't have to worry about me. I'm nice. Right? And it's like, no, there's something about that cocky guy who's arrogant, who clearly loves himself, that makes, many times women want to, and plus if your mouthpiece is on point, then she's trying to qualify to you.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm
like, hey, I'm good enough to like hang out with this dude. Like, let me show you how.
Yeah.
And like you can hear the tone in the voice when they start saying like you were talking about, say, your favorite movie or something that you saw, and they're like, oh yeah, I saw that, and like you're like, yeah, I know you didn't say that shit. I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah.
No. And if I would ask you a few questions, I could like embarrass the hell out of you, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
You're cute.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? Like, I was like, I'm not going to name any names. She might see this. I don't know. But I once went on a date with someone.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. End of story. And she said to me, like, what do you, she said like the way she dates, like she's accepting resumes, right? Like of guys who wants to qualify themselves to be in her life.
Sure.
So as in like, she's the boss, she's the job that guys want, right? And I'm like, okay, what do you
tell her?
Hold on, I'm gonna get to it.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, what are these qualifications you're listing that these resumes need to meet? And she would say the guy needs to do this, da. She just had the whole list.
Like, were you asking just to be like playful, or were you asking to hear if you fit into that framework? Let
me finish.
All right.
I'm get to a point, right? So she's saying all this. I'm like, oh yeah, what's on that? And blah, blah. She's just firing it off, right? So then I asked when I done, okay. I said, if I was, I said, let's consider this the interview that you lined up, right? As a person sitting in front of you, if you're considering yourself your job, my question to you is, why should I work at your company? And she was like, you're like, that's actually a really good question. I'm like, yeah, it's a great question. Still waiting for the answer, right? So I was just like, because that's how I actually like communicate with potential employers, like in my career all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's an exchange,
right?
There's nothing wrong with a woman having standards,
no,
right?
Not at all.
In fact, I appreciate.
They have to, or else,
yeah.
Or else
Otherwise,
they'd be like mating with every single person that just hits them up with a hey.
They don't have that kind of time. No, but what
there'd be a lot of like ugly, short hey babies out there.
Hey babies, or people that are just like inadequate human beings that won't survive in the current environment.
Right.
But yeah, the point is, like, I think it's great that a woman has standards for herself. What's even more important is understanding what value you can bring to someone that has those standards, so you can keep those standards in your life, right? Yeah. That's why I reversed the question to her, just to understand what it is.
Well, it also acts as a little means of bringing about some humility. That's why she was speechless.
That wasn't my intention.
Right, but that's what happened.
Sure, that's what happened. But my intention was for her to look at herself as not just someone who's a receiver, but someone who can contribute to the person that she wants to receive from.
Right.
And I advise most women to do the same. I'm not a female coach and so on and so forth, but I think given the experience that I have and the experience of other men and women also, and things that they complain about, is put yourself in a position of someone who also wants a job, because at the end of the day, the guys that you want have qualities that they're looking for. And if you overlook that, you're gonna miss the bus, right?
Well, and see, the problem is that, and we hear this a lot on Clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
They're looking for a pattern. There is no damn pattern. There's no.
What do you mean?
So, I mean, people will talk about it. I hear like, dudes will be like, oh, I want, they'll say, like, what are you looking for in a wife? Right.
Yeah.
And the guys will say, oh, well, I wanted to do this. I wanted to cook. I wanted to clean. I want to do these things and that things and the other. And as if that's something that I don't even think half these guys have even experienced that before, except by their own mothers.
Oh boy, here we go.
Right. When you had posed that question to the young lady, and she couldn't answer unless she knew you better. Right.
What do you mean?
So if she knew you better, she would know what kind of man you were.
Okay.
What your actual needs are in your life.
Yeah.
Based on how you move.
Yeah.
And how you live your life.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say you are in a lifestyle where you don't have time to sit down for a meal. You don't really care.
Okay.
You just order, boom, it's done. Or let's say you've got a chef who comes by.
Yeah.
You don't need a woman who knows how to cook.
Yeah, but see,
but for someone like that, like let's say that's you.
Yeah.
It's not a concern of yours. You don't care. Right?
I got
so
you.
She comes in, she's like, I can cook.
That's not even the answer. That's not the response.
You'd be like, I don't care.
But that's not even the response that like I think women should be like dishing out, right? For lack of no pun intended.
Right.
That's not even the response I'm expecting, but there are certain qualities, not skills, but qualities that are like valuable to a large population of people. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying cooking, clean, like that's a cliche.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what a lot of men. I never communicate that. At least not in my adult life.
Sure.
What I communicate in terms of my expectation is like things that could look different for different men, but still applicable. Like how attentive are you, right? How considerate are you a person, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have like good morals or good values and things like that? Are you someone that do you work hard, right? Do you like put in effort in things, right? Whatever that might be to me, you'll find out what that is when you get to know me. But do you even have the capacity to learn someone and be compassionate, right? Like things like that.
Well, that's what I tell women is that if a guy catches your eye, study him. Yeah. Like in the same way that like a hunter who's going out for like a new species of game that they came across.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about that species. You're going to like drop back. You're going to watch their, how they eat, their migration patterns, where they sleep. You're going to watch all that shit before you figure out how to hunt it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I tell ladies. Like if a guy catches your eye, like just stay within ability to share energy, but study him. Don't get like so caught up in your own fantasies of what could be. Really just stay focused in the present and watch him. Right. Yeah. And not just jump at him because it's like, oh, he's got great qualities. It's like really study of how you could integrate yourself.
Yep.
Right. And that goes to one of my key indicators. Like you mentioned like kindness, or I can't remember what you said, but one of mine is being self-aware, like being ego aware. Right.
What do you mean?
Well, back when you were just mentioning like relationships, right? And how like those things that you don't know can come up into a relationship and cause earthquakes. Being ego aware is when those things come up, not allowing them to turn into volcanoes and earthquakes.
Yeah.
Being able to separate and go, whoa, okay, this came up for me.
Yeah.
Okay. And not living in it, but being able to separate your ego from it and saying, we need to talk about this, or can I talk about this with you?
Okay.
Right. And if both people have that capacity, then you have less of a chance of like getting into fights, right? Because
separating themselves from the problem.
Right. Or separating themselves from their emotional response.
Yeah.
Like, sure, have an emotional response, but then when you're calm, you're able to kind of
compartmentalize it.
And say, okay, that's how I was feeling. Why was I feeling like this? Do I have the courage in myself to get those answers of why? Can I hear their truth? Can I accept my own truth? Right. And that's what really allows someone to grow within a relationship, is being able to separate from your ego and the investments that you have on your beliefs, on your perspectives, and so on and so forth.
Now, are you saying that that's something that you want to see more from women, men, or both?
Well, that's just something that I do, that I have a capacity for, that I expect for a woman to have in my life.
Okay.
Like if she can't have a high level of self reflection and self investigation, I don't even want to deal with you. Like, it's not worth my time, because then I'm going to be working up against a wall at some point. Right. I'm going to get to a wall, and you're going to be too afraid to push it down.
So this is in the context of you actively dating right now, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. Do you see yourself getting married again?
It's possible. I'm on the fence of it being something that is state regulated, though.
Why?
Because the state has no business in my love life. No, now other people will say, "Oh, well, the only thing that I have issue with is that, let's say I was in a terrible accident, right? Or she was in a terrible accident. Because we're not married, I wouldn't be allowed certain access. I wouldn't be able to see them because I'm not family."
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So something really morbid or dangerous happened, that would be a problem. But as far as like finances, property, things like that, all that can be settled with various systems that do not involve the state.
I feel you, right? But I did have a conversation with a divorce lawyer who seems to have a different argument about, where the value comes in with bringing in the state. But you're stating that the state entering your love life brings you no value other than if something morbid happened.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do ladies feel like when you say this to them?
It depends on how immersed they are in their own social conditioning.
Yeah.
Right. Because, let's face it, like at the age of like 4, like my daughter started seeing Disney movies at,
I didn't realize you had a daughter. You have a daughter?
Yeah, I've got a 13-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is from your marriage.
From my only marriage. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. They're great kids. Awesome kids. But they started watching Disney shit when, they're very, very young.
Yeah.
So that's where those sort of things start creeping in. There's also, you can check this, like mimetics. You familiar with mimetics? Not memes of like cats and stuff like that. They derive that from this term mimetics, and it's the traverse of information through culture, through indirect means. So, for example, I could ask my son at like the age of 6, to do the twist, and he would do Chubby Checkers, the twist, but exactly, he's never seen it on video. He's never heard the song. He doesn't know who Chubby Checker is, but he performed it perfectly. That's an example of mimetics.
So what do you think he got it from?
Mimetics. It's a traverse of information through culture in very, very subtle ways.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, Marshall McLuhan was really big on that. You should check it out. It's pretty mind-bending stuff. But that information gets in very early and very subtly. So, when I'm talking to women who are like, I want to get married, I'm like, are you sure those desires are your desires? Right? Are you sure? Mm-hmm. Because you've been hearing that stuff since you were a little girl.
How does that work out for you when you have that conversation?
I would say 90% of the time, they're just like, this is what I want, and this is what I want, and that's just what I want. And then 10% of the time, and then like maybe like 5% of the time, it's like, like I can like feel like the gears turning.
Yeah, the gears turning. Like why do I want this?
Or it's like, you've got a running motor or something like that. You like drop like a bolt in it and just like, and starts like messing with stuff. And then another 5% are like, stop. And they're like, I don't know. Are those my real desires?
Yeah.
Because how can I parse that away? Like, let me figure this out. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because, I don't know, I think women largely have a problem when it comes to self-reflection and like objectivity and things like that, because it counteracts feelings, right? And imagination and fantasy and all that stuff. It's like, all that's fun stuff. You know what I mean? And you got society telling you like, oh, this is accessible and it's all for you, and you can have it all. And so starting from a very young age, you can marry the prince, who'll whisk you away from the world of suffering.
Yeah,
you know,
despair.
Right. And you could just kick your feet up in like nice, beautiful gowns and eat bonbons all day long and then go on a pony ride. It's possible. Those men are real.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so that gets like swathed through their minds as growing up, along with a narrative that says like you can do no wrong.
Yeah.
Right. That you're above reproach. You cannot criticize, you cannot analyze, you cannot break down. Right. And so it's a rare woman who has that capacity to like sit back and be like, okay, yeah, let's dig into this. Yeah, let's parse this out. And I've noticed it with older women my own age.
Yeah.
Right. My ex-wife, she's like, she can do that.
Yeah, right? But after you've already been married, it's easy to do
and
that.
Gone through life and things like that. And but try this with like a 20-something, 30-something.
It's a whole problem. But do you feel as though like it's more of a difficult argument with women than it is with men?
A difficult
in terms of like your point of view.
Yeah.
Right? Is a difficult argument with 90% of the women, like you said.
Oh, right. You mean like having the fantasy?
No.
Right. The social conditioning. Like, are you asking, do men have the same difficulty dealing with challenging their social conditioning
when it comes to marriage?
I think yes, but it's in a different sense. Like their social conditioning is like telling them what they should do, not how they should feel about themselves. Like it's more of like process oriented. Like I should do this, and then I do this, and then I do this, and then my life will be happy, right? But part of it is like the falling on the sword thing, and placating, and like if I do this enough, if I stab myself enough with my own sword, women are gonna love me.
Yeah, But in reality, like the growing consensus of people who have conversations about marriage, the men are typically the ones who stray away from the idea or have cold feet or have like reserves about wanting to get married in the first place.
Well, because that used to be a thing back, pre-internet, when it was like, I'm gonna be having to sleep with the same woman.
Yeah.
Forever.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like that was the fear. That's where the cold feet came in.
Okay.
It was like, I don't know if I should commit because I could have like other options, right?
And
now there's so much information out there.
About
right? Well, there's so much information about marriage, and men are able to converse with one another on podcasts in places like Clubhouse, YouTube, Twitter, and so on. And they're sharing information, and there's so many dudes who are just like, yeah, this sucks. Like I had this happen to me. I had this happen to me. This is what and so it's like scaring off a lot of younger guys.
But what aspects of marriage is scaring guys?
The fear of loss, both like emotional and physical.
When you say physical, what do you
financial?
Okay.
Or assets.
Okay,
right?
but when you say emotional loss, I mean, technically, a woman can have emotional loss too. No?
Well, of course, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, men have that, and it's a consideration, right? They don't want to be that guy who, has an unsatisfied wife who's sleeping with some dude on the side.
I mean, that can also happen if you're in a relationship, right?
Correct.
So specifically marriage as a whole, like the whole legal
right,
aspect.
but in a relationship, you can have an attitude. Like I have an attitude of like, I don't judge women for their behavior.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
Like, do what you do. And I generally have this philosophy of like, treat women like cats.
What?
Yes. You treat women like cats, because what you can do is you just sit, right? If you had a cat here, the cat would be like, oh, you know what? Justin looks comfortable. And the cat would slink over here, sit on my lap. I pet the cat, purr. And then at some point, it's going to be like, you know what? I'm going to go lie over there, or I'm going to go eat something, or I'm going to go outside.
Yeah.
And if I try to hold the cat, yes, I could, but it's not going to want to be there willingly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to begrudgingly sit there, or it'll get mad and like hiss or scratch at me. But so if you just do your thing, the cat will come, it will stay, and then it will go.
Okay.
And then it will come, and then it will go.
So how does that like reflect the idea that, your wife or girlfriend or whoever might leave you for somebody else? Because you just mentioned like guys fear the emotional separation.
Well, it has to do with possession and attachment.
So right? you don't have any possession.
I don't want to possess a woman.
So that means, okay, so are you into like open relationships?
Yes.
Okay, see, that's a whole different mindset.
It is.
Right? And that's very specific to you.
Right.
Right? So that works for someone who's accepting of that.
But for guys who are not accepting of that, women are still going to do what they're going to do.
I feel you. I feel you, right? But are you saying like the best solution is to have your mindset? Or how does somebody with
the best solution for me?
Right. So for a guy that wants monogamy, right? A guy that wants like to have a union with one person and build something, right? If a woman's going to do what she's going to do, what do you subscribe to that guy?
I would say do your very best, right? Because relationship, street game, easy. You can put on a charm for one night, get what you want, and the next day you can go back to being a nerd, okay? But you get into a relationship, now your game's got to be a little bit more on point, right? You get into a long-term relationship, it's got to be even more on point.
Yeah.
You get married, and you're seeing this person day in and day out.
Yeah.
It's got to be top notch.
Yeah.
Your game's got to be top fuck notch.
Yeah.
And most guys don't even spend any time developing that. They just go, well, I'll just I'll go to the gym and get a good job, and that should be good enough.
That's what they sound like?
Yes. And they just think that's going to be good enough. They have a good enough. I proposed to her. Why? Yeah, that's
my issue. That's my issue.
And it's like, no, man. Like, you have to be on point. Like, women, their minds they flow. They're not like straightforward, and like linear the way we are. Like, they flow. So where there's a stimuli, if that stimuli stops, like, I'm living proof of it. Many of my clients are living proof of it. If you are unskilled and inconsistent with the stimulation, the right kind of stimulation at the right time, with the right kind of mindfulness, like, you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
You're constantly having to corral and cultivate in many different ways when you've got a wife. And it's a constant job. So you're now signing up to a job you've already got, right? Either an entrepreneur or you work for somebody else. Now you sign up for another job. And now if you want kids, that's another job or jobs.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so there's like, you have to be a leader, a real leader, where you're paying attention. Like, the general of an army thinks about everything.
Yeah.
They don't shut off.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh, cool, so the war's going on, I'm just going to kick my feet up.
But see, that's the thing. That's my biggest gripe with like the concept of like marriage is not even just a financial thing, because, given prenups and stuff, you can kind of circumvent that. But I think the challenge is the mindset, where you get on an altar and you say words like, I'm with you no matter what. I'm giving you unconditional love, sickness and health, for good or for worse, right? That's what breeds content, right? And the idea that
content or contempt?
Content.
Okay.
Right? Meaning like, wherever we're at right now is what we're going to love forever. And that makes people work less towards keeping their partner the way that you were doing it when you were courting your partner, right? I feel like a long-term relationship is a constant courtship that I think is forgotten when you tie your courtship just to get married.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So to your point, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the gym or not go to the gym. Or
right.
I'm gonna, be charming or not be charming. She already signed the paper, or he already signed the paper. He signed on to me.
Yep.
Versus, no, he signed on or she signed on to the effort you were putting in. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's forgotten. And I think culturally, that's the problem that I have with like the concept of like that type of union. And a lot of people argue and say, well, that means you weren't with the right person. That's an easy thing to say. No. Right? But at the same time, I think
most people are lazy.
Exactly. Most people are lazy. So when you add the mechanism of this legal union, it triggers the laziness. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly. I was having this exact conversation with a female, like a femininity coach, a friend of mine. She's in the UK, gorgeous, love her to death.
He loves her to death, all right.
Oh yeah, she's very charming.
He loves her in a lot of ways.
Yes, I wish. I'm like, girl, if you were here, we'd have already been gone out like many times. You'd know where I live.
In other words, he would sit you on his lap and
yes, spank her.
Okay, well, that was said.
But we were having this exact conversation because she's all like wanting like that dream marriage, that dream narrative. Like it can be real, right? And it's based on belief. Beliefs often are charged by emotions, right? That's why they say don't talk about religion or politics in a bar.
Yeah.
Because our beliefs are tied with our emotions.
Yeah.
Right. And people get upset when those beliefs are challenged. So, which is why it's important to me to be able to parse those things, you know, to like bifurcate that between your beliefs and your feelings, so you can talk about the beliefs and see if they're really fucking worth keeping around. Right.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we were talking about that marriage thing, and I'm just like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like there's like, aside from like a couple of things, maybe a tax break, like I don't see the benefit. And, it's really like what you bring to it as an individual.
Yeah.
Right. It's about the connection.
Yeah.
It's about who you are as you're stepping forward. Okay. And a lot of people, they'll get that paperwork and then they'll kick their feet up. Like, I've done the deed.
Yeah. I've done the job. I've gotten to the point where I no longer need to work.
Right. And it's like you get the job. It's like you work your butt off to make your resume such. You ace the interview. You do the interview such that you can get hired. And then it's like they give you the job and you're like, all right, cool. So like, I'm just going to go to my desk and take a nap.
Yeah. Like, and that's what happens oftentimes. But again, the argument will be, well, you picked the wrong person.
Right.
Right. You picked or
you hired the wrong employee, or they say like, well, you got the wrong job.
Yeah.
Get the job where it allows you to sleep.
Yeah. Like, or whatever the case may be. But all in all, I think it's very congruent to gauge like how much we're influenced by like social conditioning.
Yeah.
Right. As a whole, when it comes to marriage, relationships, and just how we relate to each other. And, this conversation about men, having the right mindset is always very important to me, because I come across a lot of men who are troubled, right? Men who are, concerned about, where they fit in this planet, where they fit in their relationship, as well as like their ability to be effective people in the spaces that they're in, especially in the realm of their relationships.
Yeah.
And I think you shed a lot of light on how that comes into play when it comes to like interacting with women, interacting with men, so on and so forth. And I appreciate everything you shared, because a lot of it just needs to be said. A lot of it needs to be understood. And I hope the people who are listening are taking heed of what you're saying and, doing some homework before just applying whatever they were conditioned to think.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
At least start asking the questions.
Right.
At least just wonder, say, is this really my own belief? Is this my real desire? Am I really who I think I am? Right.
Who am I?
No, it's true, because there's so many people who just go with the flow. Right. And truth be told, women hate dudes who go with the flow.
They don't know that.
That's why those certain dudes stand out. They are the rebels. They think on their own. They do what they want. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a reason why Genghis Khan had so many wives. Yeah. Because he was like, screw the rest of the world. I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, have that mentality instead of like the mentality, which was a lot of guys, which has been shift of like social media and so on, where they say, how can I fit in? How can I be acceptable? Which is their mind going to the mind of the collective. Right. Okay. And saying, does this work for you? Yeah. Will you still like me? Am I attractive enough? Yeah. Will somebody date me now? Yeah. Right. And it's the dudes who are
how about now?
Not.
How about now? Hey. Hi. Hey. Heart emoji. Hey. Fire. How about now?
2 fires.
Your love is fire. Listen, Justin, this was a phenomenal conversation. Yeah. And I appreciate every ounce of it. And we should do this more often. And I'd like you to tell people like how to find you and like give them a little tidbit of like what kind of programs you might have going on that they can participate in.
Yeah, sure. So the primary place for people to find me is on Instagram, and that can be found at the Alpha Evolution. And just that, no underscores, nothing like that. So just the Alpha Evolution. And I don't get caught up on that sort of stuff, right? Like the whole like alpha, beta, whatever nonsense. It's, don't go off the rails. It's just marketing. It's just what people like to hear. It's common parlance. So it really has nothing to do with that. And I have a 30-day program, and really it goes through taking a look at beliefs. Okay. shedding ones that don't work for us.
Okay.
And keeping the ones that do.
Okay.
And then over the next few weeks, spending time developing the foundation as it's customized to you.
Okay.
Right. So you start building your own framework and building your own codes and principles. We never get into talk about that because codes, principles, and rules are the thing that creates those guys.
Yeah.
The man that stands apart from the collective.
Okay.
And can stand firmly on his square. That square is your codes and principles. But anyways, so we work on developing those sort of things as customized to that person based on their own beliefs about themselves. And then we add, some social game for guys who don't know how to text well, don't know how to talk well, don't know how to fuck well. Like that's when we start in the fun stuff and like flirtation and like, let's look at your wardrobe. Like what's going on, right? Let's help increase your overall attractiveness.
Okay. So you're like a full suite for like men, like enhancing themselves.
Yeah. Well, no, not a full suite. Not a full suite. I mean, we don't get into finances. We don't really get into fitness because those things can really get it would turn into like a much larger program.
Okay.
So I don't want to get into all that. I just want to like kind of get the basis because that foundation is what works for everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You change your mindset about yourself. That changes the way you treat your body. It changes the way you treat money. Right. It changes how you treat your clothes. Like your possessions, like all sorts of things.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Listen, guys, you can find me at j.damisse for Instagram or j_damisse for Twitter. You can find the Introspect Club at introspect_club on everything, whether it's TikTok, Twitter, IG, YouTube. Make sure you guys stay tuned in for the next episodes as well as other very exclusive content on the Patreon. So until next time, folks.